we kind of moved the timeline forward, and we have a project now that's the Maverick, which is on 28th Street between 7th and 8th. And what's interesting about this project sort of historically is that this area of the city has been a manufacturing district for many years. And back in 2011, the city started to think about changing the zoning here in order to promote a more mixed-use scenario. So there was actually a new zoning district developed, which was M16D, and that allowed for the first time residential use to be in this particular zone of the city, but also retail and office, which could be also within the manufacturing district. And what this allowed the city to evolve with is that Chelsea was already happening, sort of Nomad with the Ace Hotel and so forth was already happening, and of course Penn Station and so forth. So you now have the ability to stitch those neighborhoods together and get some residential in there to help with sort of affordable housing, and also provide housing for people who were taking advantage of the lower rents and for office space in the district. So our site originally was more the site on the right, which is the white building. And partway through the design, the client told us to come in the next day. They had some news for us, and they had acquired several other lots to the left. And so we ended up with a site which was 200 feet long. In the zoning district here, we were required to actually split it into two buildings, and we looked at a lot of different permutations on this. We had all kinds of really crazy cantilevering schemes where the condo was much larger and overlapped and created some amenity space. And in the end, we kind of distilled it back to just really simple vertical volumes, and then stepping the building back, twice to kind of create these outdoor spaces, and then ultimately up at the top, creating a loggia that gives some outdoor space to the penthouse units, but creates a sense of privacy up at the top of the building. And in terms of the design, I think the main challenge here was how to grapple with such a scale. And thinking of these long Manhattan blocks, and when the sun sort of hits a certain position, that you get these long shadows or really wonderful quality of light that comes down through the block, and how to sort of break up the facade in a way that would take advantage of that and kind of create a shimmering effect. And we looked at kind of metal inlays and a kind of abstract geometric frame that could frame these incredibly large windows that have great views to the south. And so we worked with a company called BPDL out of Canada. These guys had mostly historically been making infrastructure like bridges and tunnels and things like that, and precast. And then gradually started to transition into architecture. One of their first projects in the city was actually the paving on the first and second phase of the High Line. So we met with them, and it was really interesting because we could develop a kind of new way of doing a facade, but that would kind of relate to the masonry and so forth of the surrounding context. And what was also very interesting about it was the creation of almost a modular system for the facade. So the facade panels are 40 feet long and just over 10 feet high, and they're poured in the factory with these custom molds, and then the glazing is put in, they're water tested up in the factory, brought down on a flatbed truck. One of our employees just happened to be walking by when this truck came by, and then picked up by a tower crane and literally put in place like building blocks around the building, and it allowed for the building to be enclosed very rapidly. But the great benefit that we really enjoyed was the level of craftsmanship that was possible from the factory and brought down was really high, and that was great to see. So here's an image on the left of the front of the facade. Here you can see that kind of interplay of shadow and light that's going on. We did some planted canopies on the bottom to provide entrance to the residential, also the retail spaces. And then going into the interiors, we really like to kind of bring a lot of the geometric themes that are happening on the exterior into the interior of the building. The building has underground a sort of vast array of spaces. The client dug 45 deep deep foundation. And there was originally to be parking structures down there, and they're now being converted into accessory residential spaces. A full floor of amenities, and in addition to some retail below grade. But the amenities were a really great challenge because there was no natural light. So for us, it was how do we bring an incredible sense of sort of indirect light and atmosphere to these spaces. So we have residential lounges, we have a library, we have a gym, and a pool. And also we thought it was really important to bring a sense of sort of health and wellness, because as this building was being developed, of course we ended up in the pandemic, and that's become a very important theme to a lot of our work since this project as well. So there's also a spa and salt wall and yoga room and so forth that are part of the building. And then the residential, we like to say we kind of practice a kind of warm minimalism. So it was about sort of a timeless palette here, really nice sort of wood, white oak, cerused white oak and marble, and then being a little bit more dramatic in the bathrooms, but then always trying to bring these themes, geometric themes from the facade back into how the interiors were developed.
Guys, I have one more project left in you. All right, I promise it'll be quick. This was an incredibly exciting project, not realized. It's more a conceptual exercise, and it was one of the more kind of exciting opportunities in our career so far. We were contacted by Justin Davidson of New York Magazine and Curbed, and it was in regards to this incredible church on 86th in Amsterdam, the West Park Presbyterian Church, built in, I think, 1890, red sandstone building. Became an individual landmark in some point in the early 2000s. It was recently purchased by a developer who immediately filed for what's called a hardship, meaning that it's not financially viable to save the building, so that an exception should be made to the individual landmarks designation. So Davidson's question for us, he approached us. Also, thank you to Liz Kubani, our marketing wizard over here. He approached us about, in regards to another project that Excel's working on, which is 140 West 81st Street, where we took a church which had a congregation of just about 11 or 12 people, which is a common problem across the city, that the religious properties tend to have smaller congregations and financial inability to maintain them. And so at that project, which is going to be completed in a few months, fingers crossed, that we were able to keep the congregation in the neighborhood, which it didn't look like they were going to be able to afford to do so. The congregation and a community facility exist at and below grade, and then we have condos up above. And so Justin saw that project and the success of that project and asked us, what would we do as DXA Studio to save this project? And we had an incredible conversation. He's an amazingly thoughtful writer in person, and the conversation was really about, is it always a binary response to saving landmarks? Is it either you restore it to the T, which is oftentimes what the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, would like you to do, or do you just demolish it and you start over again? And we found the answer to be, if you go to the next slide, we did a number of studies massing how do you get the square footage necessary to pencil out. We worked with a real team, with a contractor. We worked with a broker sales team to figure out what we could sell per square foot, what it would cost to build per square foot, and then we developed a response, and that was to really only sacrifice the roof of the church. We could restore the full church with a pretty significant profit margin by doing this, and do a massing, which would not be as of right. We would still need special permission from the city and the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and then treat the kind of just totally coincidental datum of these two like kind of nondescript buff brick buildings on the sides, and then create almost a continuation of that fabric with a glass curtain wall system, one that actually has a very thin veneer of stone interlaid between glass. So you would have this warm glow about the residential tower, and you'd keep the community facility down in its base. And this to us struck us as the best possible solution, and it penciled out as a viable project. And so, is there another slide, or is that the last one? Oh, yeah. So that is still being deliberated by Landmarks, and that I think somebody took the liberty of taking the article and publication and submitting it to Landmarks for their consideration. So we're hoping that the church is spared. We don't know which way Landmarks will go with it, but we're, it was a very interesting exercise to see how it could be maintained. And then similarly, this project received an invitation for the biennial in Venice, which Wayne gets to go to next week. It's not taking me, thanks a lot. But if you guys make it over there until Thanksgiving, it's open. And I think that's it. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone have questions? Well, I have.
Yeah.
How were you able to have such a great relationship with Landmarks? I mean, it's a difficult organization. So
It's a great question. Yeah, is there more? Sorry.
No, I'm just very curious.
Yeah.
Because all you hear is from many architects is how difficult it is for them to even get their work passed, looked at, agreed upon. I mean, it's just a very difficult process to get any kind of architecture built in the city, and especially if it's a landmark building. So, and you are able to kind of like bypass, or not bypass, but you had such a great relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm sure practicing architects here would love to know how you were able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. It's that we just learned to speak their language. We learned to, I mean, it's in any situation, you got to figure out what is different about the situation, what's special about the situation. I think with Landmarks, because they have very high standards, and because there has to be great logic to your response, and it's one argument. It's about appropriateness. Like, why is your design appropriate to go here? And you can construct these kind of very interesting kind of narratives, and a lot of times those narratives require a greater investment in quality of materials. And for us, like that, for our clients to come in understanding that we're going to have to do a little bit more than a typical building, already starts the project off on a better foot than the guys who show up and ask us, can you make it out of paper? Can it be less than $100 a square foot, or just kind of crazy questions? The clients that are willing to adventure and go in and take on the Landmarks projects already start in a better place to have a kind of a higher quality product. Also, historically, I think I was very fortunate. I worked with Morris Adjemi Architects, he was a partner of Aldo Rossi, and so Aldo doing the Scholastic building just a few blocks from here was like a big breakthrough for kind of Landmarks and what they're looking for, and we found them to actually be really great partners in the process, and that a lot of times they actually push for more innovation in design. And so I think it's just we've been doing it long enough and have a good working relationship, and we understand it. We save their time by not wasting their time. Like, we show up and we're prepared, so it's been a good relationship. I understand it's not always good for people, and we've had our bad days there too, but we've had a lot of good days.
I think many people usually.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, with that said, thank you very much for being here this evening. Make sure to take home a memento. The book is on sale today, and Michaela will definitely help you with the purchase. So thank you very much. We have plenty of food in the back. Make friends, have wine, and hopefully hopefully we'll see you on November 16th when we have Masana O'Rourke.
And we're happy to sign the books too, if you're into that sort of
Yes.
thing. Thank you guys.